This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Bruschi, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
Michael McKee, Dr. Michael McKee, 39-year-old vascular surgeon, pled not guilty to 4 counts of aggravated murder and 1 count of aggravated burglary in the December 30th shooting deaths of his ex-wife, Monique Tepe, and her husband, Spencer Tepe, at their Columbus, Ohio home. The indictment alleges McKee used a firearm equipped with a suppressor to execute that very couple while their 2 young children, ages 1 and 4, slept in the same house in the other room. Monique's family has described McKee as emotionally abusive and claims he threatened to kill her on multiple occasions during their brief 7-month marriage, which ended about a decade ago in 2017. McKee allegedly traveled from Illinois to Ohio, drove but 300-some miles, entered the home without forced entry, committed the killings around 3:42 a.m., and then got back in his car and drove back, keeping the murder weapon in his residence, where police later recovered it. Yeah, and then allegedly went back to work for 11 days, too. Joining me now to break down the behavioral indicators in this case, Robin Drigg, former FBI Special Agent, Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. Robin, the family says Monique told them McKee threatened to kill her multiple times during their marriage, and that was 8 years before these murders allegedly occurred. From a behavioral standpoint, what does it tell you when someone carries that kind of fixation across nearly a decade, through multiple jobs, multiple states, an entirely new life built by her former partner, and even the fact that when saying this to begin with to their partner about a decade ago when you're with them, I mean, it says a lot that someone's even using that phrase in general with a partner, does it not?
Yeah, there's a few things in there. I actually looked that up, Tony. The threaten to kill or do violence against your spouse or even a partner of any sort in your life. How common is that with actual real threats of violence where they do escalate? And unbelievably not. They're extremely high. I think it was like 85% of the people that actually do those kind of threats follow through on those threats. And so
no kidding.
Yeah, it's actually, because I was looking up me, I hear someone say something, I got to look it up. What are the probabilities? Because we're seeing, in hindsight, we always say, is this a red flag or not a red flag? Yeah, this is a huge red flag. It's not a predictor. So here's what it is. It's kind of like espionage. Not all, in espionage, we have an expression, happy people don't commit espionage, but not all unhappy people do. And it's the same thing here. Not all people that say you're going to kill your wife, kill their wives, but all people that have killed their wives typically have said, I'm going to kill my wife. So yeah, it is a predictor. Not a hugely accurate one that you can use in a court of law, but it's an art.
Well, if you're saying like 80% follow through on a threat, I mean, that's high. I mean,
I think that was the number. I got so many numbers because we're covering some because so it's somewhere between 80 to 85 and definitely above 50 when I looked up that stat. It's huge. It's not an outlier. In other words, it's a predictor. And then to the other point, the holding on to this for so long, and also the 7-month marriage. Here is, I think, an extreme level, because we all know people who are control freaks in our lives. But this is control freak-ish to the extreme level, because when people lose control, they have a fear. And when fear enters their bodies and enters their mind and psyches, they feel they need to do something to regain control so they no longer fear. Could be, pure conjecture. Could be a reason why he's a doctor, practicing doctor, physician, control over lives, control. So this guy, to me, looks like a massive control freak. He loses control over her, fixates on it, and outwardly, because again, when you're looking for arcs and patterns that we outwardly observe, you don't see a lot of outwardly stuff that the rest of the world sees. But I'm telling you, it was brewing. He was conjecture, a resentment treasure trove internally. So she was occupying his brain space for a very, very long time, living inside his brain rent free. I don't think the rest of the world quite knew the extent of, but dare say, I think during the trial, and for people that were close enough to him, and I'll say close enough because he probably pushed a lot of people away because of his behavior in general, there's going to be leakage. There's always leakage. And whether it comes out in writing, comes out in online surfing, trolling, whatever it is, there's always going to be some sort of leakage, because you cannot harbor such animosity towards another human being to the level that you're going to take a action that is so violent that it doesn't leak out. In other words, this, because again, it doesn't look like from 0 to 100 like this. He had to take a lot of effort. He had to go do a drive. He had to do some planning. So there's a lot in here he had to do. So it just doesn't snap. So I'm really curious about what kind of leakage they're going to see when we're going to see him be exposed to during the trial.
I mean, yeah, I think we got 8 years of anybody and everyone who interacted with him over that time. And I think we're going to see some really interesting stories. I think you're going to see everything. I really do. I think you're going to have some folks who probably are like, I worked with him. He seemed fine. You know, we went to McDonald's and talked and really that surface level, he got by in life, pretty well for a pretty long period of time. You got to have some sort of skills to get that far. And I think you're going to see a level of that there, but I think we're going to also learn a lot more like we did from that ex-girlfriend who allegedly dated him for a period of time there between the murders and Monique, where it was, she couldn't get deep with him. There was only so far she could go before it was like, there's just, he's not opening up, and consider herself lucky, because if he did open up, that means he's being vulnerable to her, and then she would have ended up being a target very likely, because she would have wronged him and all that. The fact that he didn't allow himself to be vulnerable to another human being to that level, it shows his capacity to do so seemed to be very still focused on Monique, if in fact he did this and he wasn't able to open up or let anyone else, I guess, kind of take that spot. Members of Monique's family describe his behavior as a sustained campaign of emotional cruelty. They say Monique was terrified and willing to do anything to get out. That's quite a thing to say, and especially even from other people who were not the ones in the relationship. Sometimes you ask people about, well, how was that relationship with so-and-so that so-and-so was in? And you're going to, I don't know, I think a lot of times you kind of get a vanilla version, not necessarily what the person who experienced it would, well, it was kind of shaky. It was kind of rough, it didn't work out well for them. They're just like, hell froze over and there's flames and it's horrible and it's just vastly not a good relationship. They're saying that. Obviously, she can't anymore, but I think it really says something about what she was communicating to those around her about just how dire that relationship was.
Yeah, you hit a few things that really triggered some real deeper thoughts on this, and that is, I think he was very, very practiced at the 5-second highlight reel, as I call it. Yep. And that is what we present very consciously to the world around us. That's why people feel very bad about themselves sometimes if they start going on too much social media, because you're seeing people on TikTok and Instagram and everything posting these smiling faces, these great, beautiful vacations. Or like, I'm a backpacker and everyone says, oh, you look so serene out on backpacking trails. Say, no, you're seeing the 5 seconds of awesomeness and the 24 hours of suck. Because that's what people do. They present their 5-second highlight reel to the world that kind of mystifies them and entrances them. And I think that's what he did here. Because, think about it. So here's someone that loves someone enough to get married, thinking of her to marrying him. And then all of a sudden, we go from 100 to 0. It bottoms out in 7 months. And that takes a lot of courage. And also, to me, and we've seen this with other relationships we've covered on the show before too. For some reason, there wasn't a deep enough emotional entanglement by her to start rationalizing the behavior away and allow herself to be trauma bonded to him and stay with him. She cut it and left. Mm-hmm. So that says to me, conjecture wise, that he wasn't sharing all of himself. He presented a very, very rehearsed 5-second highlight reel that made him extremely functional in life until they got married, until he felt in control. Now, because remember, control freaks are extremely possessive. And so there's my thought experiment on this is that now that she's mine, I can now be me because there's nowhere she can go. I control her. I think that's what happened. And when she ripped it away from him, that's when the resentment set in, and he's saying to himself in his mind is like, how dare she? I am who I am. I identify as this. I identify as this person that's in control of my environment. I'm the master of my universe, and how dare you defy me? And I'm going to right this wrong. And he's constantly, most likely, that's why I say we're going to see leakage over this, over the period of time, trying to validate his own self-worth and own self. Like he was hoping, pure conjecture on my side too, was that that he was going to troll her on social media and watch her fail, a failed marriage, a failed this. And every time she was showing something, granted, I haven't seen her social media. I don't know how much she was on it or not on it, but every time he's seeing something, because she had to be doing something, he was getting knowledge about her somewhere. And she was not giving him what he needed to fuel that ego. And so that's what, every time she had a success, every time she had a smile that wasn't generated by him and his control, it ate at him. Yeah. If he's guilty.
If he's guilty. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting, you know, how social media works like that. And I think a lot of, it's a weird thing because you should, you know, quote unquote, be able to, you know, put whatever you want out there if you want, you know, and so your friends and your family, this is what we tell ourselves. This is what I tell myself, you know, so your friends and family can see what you're up to, especially if you don't like live near your family or whatnot. It's a great way without having to like, let me attach all these pictures to the email circa 1998. And then here's what we're up to. You know, I mean, that's how we used to do it. Social media made that really easy. Click, there you go. Here's my pictures and here's what's going on. But at that same point, you do have to take into consideration the people that are around you in your life or have been around you in your life, whether you like them or not, and what they may be using that material for. Whether it be, you know, sitting there sulking and getting angry. Should they be doing that? No. Are you going to stop them from doing that? Well, the only way to stop them from doing that is not putting it out there. There's that whole aspect of it. You have, you know, people who use the material for other things too. But it's part of the reality of where we live and how we interact with the world around us and what we put out there of us around us. And it's scary because it can invite that. It can certainly keep what otherwise may have been a fire that had gone out, was just kind of embers cooking, and had those images, had those things not been out there, maybe that fire would have just died off and he would have went away. You know, and I'm not in any way blaming her or saying anything about that, but I'm just saying these are the considerations you must take in life, because it is what it is. And it goes back to, well, I shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to. You're exactly right. But you do. And it is what it is. And if there's somebody out there that's like this in your world, unfortunately, here's how they will probably use anything you put out into the ether. And it's not going to be to go, oh, I'm so happy she moved on and is living a lovely life. No. He's going to sit there. He's going to sulk about it. And those embers are never going to go away. He's going to put more logs on the fire, and he's going to show up again. And it's really tough too, because I've been thinking about this so much, because one thing you and I always try to do is, all right, so what do we do from this point on? What do people that are in a similar situation do about something like this? What's a solution? You know, and you don't want to put anyone in lockdown, you know, from social media if you've had an unhealthy relationship out of fear, because then it's terrorism because they've won. But at the same time, though, is it though? Or right? I know isn't that a tough question? Is it though? I mean, is it really? Is it lockdown that you maybe you don't post all your pictures of your life on social media? Well, so I mean, one person's lockdown will be another person's freedom, you know, and so it's context. Yeah, it is. But I mean, I mean, it's just at the same point, it's like, or you know, were we healthier when we didn't do this shit? Were we in a better society where we didn't have the ability to voyeuristically drop in on anyone's life who was once a part of ours at any given moment and feel whatever the fuck we're going to feel about it? You know, maybe we were better off when that wasn't necessarily an option at our fingertips. At any given moment, we're like, gee, I wonder what they're doing today and what they're looking like. And if you happen to have that broken brain, it sets you off into this sort of a spiral. Yeah, I don't know.
There's an interesting philosophy when it comes to social media that I really like, and that is ask yourself before every posting: are you being a me former or an informer?
Yeah.
And it's just a good question to ask yourself, especially if you've been surrounded by some crazy.
Yeah.
You might want to really dial back the me forming, because every time you're a me former, in other words, putting information about yourself out there, we had an expression in the FBI doing undercover work, is that you had your scenario, you had your background, you had who you were in a bucket. And every time you lent out one piece of knowledge from that bucket, it's gone. You have no longer have control of it. So you always want to maintain as much control as your background, your bona fides as possible, because once it's gone, you can't control it anymore. And it's the same thing with this. If you're putting me former stuff out on social media, just realize if you don't close that circle and make it very tight about who's able to view it and see it, situations like this, again, I don't know what he was able to do or not do or see or not see, but he had to be, I can't imagine a scenario where he didn't have any ability to observe her life and escalate to violence. Yeah. So he's getting leakage from her life somewhere that's able to fuel him. And you're right. Should we have to lock down ourselves because we had on one unhealthy crazy? No, but the reality is we really might need to, depending on how crazy the crazy is, because this one.
I mean, it is what it is. That's what it becomes, this kind of ideological conversation, but it's like the ideology doesn't matter when you are mixing crazy into it. It's like, you should, you shouldn't, whatever the hell you want to believe. We should live in a perfect world. We can put whatever we want out there and there's no consequences to it whatsoever, because what we're putting out there is innocent, hopefully. That still doesn't stop crazy. And if there's crazy in your life, you don't have to have crazy in your life. There's just crazy out there. You are opening yourself up to the possibility of crazy finding you and finding whoever's in those photos and maybe using those for, unscrupulous purposes, whether that means they're going to find the people in that photo or they're just going to look at your photo for whatever reason they're looking at your photo. It's out there. It is what it is. And it's up to you whether you want to open those doors or not. But there's no putting it out there going, don't open those doors, bad people. No, it's there. It's there. You are accepting that social contract when you put your information out there. Again, I am not blaming her. She can do whatever she wants. Anyone, and this is more so like kind of an ether conversation for anyone out there. You can do whatever you want, but don't expect safety or necessarily, implicit safety and privacy if you're willingly volunteering your information to the world.
Right.
And whatever you put out there, assume it can be used wrongly and against you. And however that may be, I don't know, because you don't know who's consuming it. That's the danger that happens out there. Now, in most cases, does it end like this? No. But it does sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's just that's the dice you roll when you put it out there. Again, not blaming, but it is something that I feel like society as a whole needs to be a little bit better at weighing those consequences of the decision of clicking post on whatever the hell they're putting out there. Is it worth it? Are the benefits of clicking post and whatever likes you get and whatever comments you get, does that outweigh? And this is an individual question for each individual situation. Does that outweigh the risks of what you're putting out there for who could potentially use it against you? And if the answer is no, don't fucking post it. It's that simple. But I want to get those likes. I want to feel that tough shit.
Yeah, so
find another way.
We could
find
easily
another way to feel good about yourself and validate yourself.
Yeah, going down the road of the evils of social media and what our bodies get from it and our brains get from it, don't get from it. That is a easy conversation to have, because always ask yourself, for whose benefit am I posting this?
Yeah.
That's the difference between a me former and an informer. And even on the informer part, it's always about putting knowledge out for the benefit of others, as long as there's no gain for self. That is an informer. And realize when you're me forming to the world, sharing a photo, sharing a thought, an idea, something from your life, being vulnerable, all these things that are very good for a click, because that's what people love to watch. It's 100% ego driven. All these things that are me forming are ego driven. And always be careful. Your ego can be your enemy, as Ryan Holiday says, and I talk about, in my content as well. Our ego, it's our survival mechanism, because when we are me-centered, it allows us to prioritize ourselves and our safety, so we can actually be there for others' safety and our children, because that's how we controlled our environments as ancient primal Homo sapiens. At the same time, though, when it's out of balance and our emotional intelligence is out of balance, that me-centeredness, it drives us to do really stupid things that are not in our best interest. And so that's the question. Is always slow down. Don't have an emergency takeoff of posting something and then asking yourself these questions. Ask yourself, for whose benefit am I posting this? Play that tape forward a little bit. If someone in my life, past life, any life, could benefit in a negative way that's negative to me in any way, why am I posting this? And then just always ask, what's the purpose of me posting this? Is it helping or hindering the healthy relationships in my life and other people's lives? And does anyone really care, or do I care?
Exactly. Yeah. No, these are all questions that no one asks themselves.
I mean, we can actually just look at this pragmatically. So, Tony, your YouTube channel is killing it. I mean, you are getting hundreds of thousands of hits now, all the follows and everything else. And you know why? Because we're not talking about Tony's life and Robin's life. We're talking about everyone else's lives. That's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to inform and not me form. We're giving thoughts and opinions. And so it's how these things typically work.
Well, at the same point, though, I will argue this. There's plenty of YouTube channels out there that are 1000% about a single person. And it's narcissist central. And they get millions of views, far larger channels than ours. And it's all narcissistic content. And then others look at that and go, oh, that must be how you do it. Make it all about me.
But look at the price. There's a price.
Yeah, but people don't always see that price at that moment. They just see and people are very good at picking what they want to see too. Of like, oh, that looks fun, and they don't necessarily understand the repercussions or the trade-offs with that level of exposure for oneself until it's too late and after that lever's already been pulled.
A lot of personal attacks from people that do that.
Yeah,
I mean, you have supporters, you have an awful lot of haters in that, but also that's what all the algorithms pick up as well.
It does, I mean, it's I feel like like when you sometimes when you make a big purchase or something online, or you're making some sort of decision online, you'll get the prompts. It's not just like click done. It's like, are you sure? Are you sure? Is this the right card? Is this your right information? Double check it again. Like, I feel like on Facebook or whatever it may be, there should be like, are you sure you want to post this? Did you consider all the possible repercussions of posting a picture with this person, of what those in the ether may see or gain out of this picture? And I think a lot of times people in their mind, and I'm saying this more on a broad-based scale. I'm not speaking for Monique or anything like that. But I do think sometimes, especially when people do get into new relationships and things like that, they do post it. And part of it is just, I'm happy, I should be proud. And part of it is, fuck you. Part of it is, fuck you, look, I'm happy you're not. Because we all have that aspect of us. We all have that little bit of us. I don't think anyone is being intellectually honest with themselves if there's not one at least little part of them that once they've got out of some sort of hellscape of a relationship and have found something healthy, that there's not a moment that they don't want to wave a fucking flag to that asshole and go, see, motherfucker, I lived, I survived.
I saved myself. Right.
I saved myself. And we do that by doing social media. Now, does that little bit of me feeling, they saw that, they see I'm happy, is that then worth that person being set off who's already unhinged and knowing that could do that to them because they saw that? Now, should it? No, but it does. And so that's the reality we got to deal with. Is it worth it? Is it worth doing that little jab to the asshole of, see, I'm happy? Versus what that could do. I mean, is it worth jumping in the lion cage for 2 seconds when the ladder's right there? You can jump right out. Sure. Could you get in there real quick? Wave to the lion. He starts walking towards you. You climb out the ladder. Sure. The ladder could also tip over and you're fucking stuck too.
Yeah. So, I'm not a fan of poking at crazy. Because you don't know what crazy is going to do. And it's interesting. We had this conversation with a couple friends. Part of the ability to kind of sit back and observe and take it all in with a healthy viewpoint is you and I have talked about this offline as well, Tony, is I just back away from crazy. Yeah. It's so easy to recognize because I don't, and some people say, someone say to me the other day that, only through, and I get it, only through friction and only through conflict can we grow. Yeah. But if I don't have to choose, I can grow by watching you be nuts without me engaging it. Because because in order to be present for other people, this kind of goes into my philosophy of how to do behavioral analysis and how to live life. I have to have a calm brain. In order to have a calm brain, so I can see what is without with the greatest possibility of losing as much confirmation bias as I have in my own life, for whatever biases we all carry. In order to do that, you have to be able to engage without the brain noise, as I call it. And the noise is the crazy people that are doing unreasonable things in your lives, making unreasonable demands, basically being unhealthy left, right, and sideways and upside down. And so in order to be present for others and see what is, so you can become the beacon, or you gravitate people towards the healthy light, you have to let go of the crazy, and you have to recognize, and I recognize it like seconds, and I don't judge it, because everyone has a bit of chaos. Yeah. But it's your choice about how deeply you want to engage that chaos. Here's what I'll just tell everyone watching and listening is that in order to really avoid the chaos, you have to just create the calm inside yourself first, because then it's like, I grew up, both my parents smoked when I was growing up, and it was a lot of smoke in my house. So much so that I was oblivious to it for many years. And then all of a sudden, both my parents gave up smoking, and, years later, but now I could smell smoke like 3 houses away if someone's smoking a cigarette, because we become so sensitized because we don't have it in our environment anymore. Yeah. In order to recognize the crazy in our lives, we just have to create the calm, and don't judge the crazy. Everyone's walking their path, unless the crazy is unhealthy. And then we got to do something about it, as I've seen in these other cases. But man, you just gotta be aware of what you're dealing with, I guess, is just be sucked into the nuts.
I think you're exactly right. The problem lies in, if you've always been kind of surrounded by crazy to a certain extent, and I have no idea what the situation was with the Tepes, but if crazy has been kind of your baseline for most of your life, you're going to seek out crazy, because that's normal. And the calm, the quiet is abnormal. And it takes a lot of work to learn to be still and to learn to be okay with calm. And once you can get there, then then the smoke stands out more to you, the crazy stands out more to you. But so many of us, I think, inadvertently seek out crazy because that sounds like home. It sounds normal. It is the baseline. And we don't realize how crazy is. And an extreme crazy may not look as extreme if your baseline is here on Crazyville. Extreme's only over here. If you were down here in Calmland, extreme's going to look way the fuck out of left field. But if you're already right here, it's not that far. It's not that far of a journey to get there. But getting down to Calmland is the journey, and that is the work. And that's something that I think a lot of people need to take a step back from and look and go, what is my baseline? And it's not that you are crazy. I'm not saying Monique is crazy, but what you're surrounding yourself by, and what you're taking in, and what you're allowing yourself to take in, if so much of it is crazy, you're not going to recognize it. Because you're too engrossed in it.
And I got a feeling, that she created a lot of good, calm, and healthy in her life. And like I said, I think this guy was just so good at masking his crazy, especially when you had distance. He had distance between her and him. And he is he's a doctor. He's exceptionally practiced at control. Yeah. And I think he can control himself so very well. He masked a lot of this, but that's why I'm so curious about where the leakage is going to come out when we see it.
I'm curious if there was any connection or any communication in those years, because there may have been none. I mean, there really may have been none, and it may have been all on his side. A lot of this today, I don't want everybody to think that I'm referring to Monique and her actions. It's more so kind of a 10,000 foot overview of this sort of interaction that
basically how she was targeted.
how she was targeted and how we
targeted.
as people handle crazy, because there's so much of it out there. Yeah. Let's move on to another case. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section on that one on our YouTube channel or on our Substack, hiddenkillers.substack.com, to weigh in there.
In Huntington, Long Island. That's our stomping ground. Sorry. Say Gamma.
Paul Caneiro is on trial in Monmouth County, New Jersey, charged with the November 2018 murders of his brother Keith, sister-in-law Jennifer, 11-year-old nephew Jesse, and 8-year-old niece Sophia, followed by arson at both the family's Colts Neck mansion and his own Ocean Township home. Prosecutors allege the killings were driven by financial desperation. Keith had discovered Paul was siphoning tens of thousands from their shared business accounts and confronted him just hours before the murders. Jurors have now heard recorded phone calls of Keith demanding answers, seen surveillance footage of Paul disconnecting his own security cameras at 1:28 a.m., and listened to neighbors describe two unidentified men outside Paul's home before dawn, just as both fires were set. Joining me to break down the behavioral red flags, the psychology of family violence, and what to watch as this trial continues to unfold, Robin Drake, retired FBI special agent, chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. Robin, prosecutors are presenting that picture of escalating financial pressure, Paul allegedly stealing from his brother, Keith confronting him hours before the murders. And as we've learned now, the only way to truly profit from any sort of life insurance policy, which was there on the books, was for the whole family to die. It wasn't just the brother to die, because someone else would have inherited the millions of potential dollars that were at stake. So everyone had to go if it was going to go to Paul. From a behavioral standpoint, what does this kind of pressure do to someone who's been hiding something for a very long time, and how does it potentially drive them towards violence? I mean, we're talking financial means, financially, like he needed the money basically. I don't know if he needed it, but he wanted it, and he was willing to go allegedly not just to kill his brother, but like his niece and his nephew and his wife. That's a lot. That's a lot. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, familicide is really the most horrendous, and what he did to the children is even more gruesome and horrendous. And the fact that he had multiple weapons is also a behavioral outlier. Normally it's one or the other, but he had multiples because of that supreme rage he felt. There's so many things leading up to this that kind of struck me, because I know we're focusing a lot on the murder and what we're seeing as the cause for the murder, from at least from our outside eyes looking in right now, as they're trying to identify motive as being financial. But let's go back to the fact that they keep saying that these brothers and the family was so close, but not to everyone. We just got done talking about the Tepe case where, there's this hidden rage, and we're putting up for the rest of the world to see the 5-second highlight reel. But think about this. This is a brother, and we don't know how long he was doing it for, was stealing money from his other, before we even got to murder, he's stealing money from what was supposedly a close relative and hiding it from him until it was discovered. So we have an arc of behavior that started with him not being as emotionally attached as he was presenting, because he was, think about it. We only steal from people that we objectify in some way, or we feel entitled, or we feel like we're a victim, or we're owed something. Again, we get that victim mentality taken hold here, and we get resentment building. And if it keeps getting escalated, we have this horrendous situation.
That is true, but is that only a true statement of a healthy brain, that we only steal from people that we objectify? Would that be something that, not that it's ever healthy to begin with, or a healthy brain to be going down that path, but yeah, a brain that has empathy, that has remorse and all that, may find the moment to justify it, and then, under clearer light may go, yeah, that was still wrong, but I feel justified in doing that. But when you have an unhealthy brain, is it going through those same patterns? Is it going through that same checklist of, here's why I'm doing this?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Or do you go to like something completely different, something really crazy that's able to butcher your niece and nephew?
I'm saying objectifying so much on this because of the butchering with the knife. That takes a very personal, very rage-based. I mean, especially towards the children. That's the part that really gets you on this even more. Is like, why do that to the children, unless it was purely money motivated, and wiping out any sort of legacy of his side of the family. I mean, the selfishness of the act was so over the top. And the personalization of it, and for money, because money's a thing. And when you start making a thing more important than a relationship and people, that's generally carries through with everyone and everything you're dealing with, not just this situation. That's why I said objectified, because I don't think he has a capacity to humanize anyone really just from those behaviors. Because if you're willing to do this with the closest people in your life that you grew up with, what chance does anyone else have with you?
It echoes Murdaugh in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
100%. The financial crime aspect of this, where it's going to play a role in this, without a doubt. I mean, he's not on trial for the financial crimes here, but they certainly do play a part, it seems, in the motive, if we're to believe it, that it does. The fact that Alec Murdaugh, he was able and willing to steal from disabled people, mentally and physically, victims of horrible tragedies, take millions of dollars. I mean, take money from the children of his own, the nanny, the woman that cared for his family, helped raise his kids, people that he claimed and that they thought, that they genuinely believed prior to the murder, that Alec was just, the bee's knees. He was just, I don't think I've ever used that term in a sentence, but there you go. That he was just the best damn fucking person on to walk this earth. That he was lovely. He had a drug problem, but it was because of an injury, and unfortunately, that's a reality a lot of people deal with. But nobody thought, oh my God, he's capable of this. I'm wondering if this is that same sort of thing where he's able to put on this other era at the birthday parties, at the family dinners, at the this and that, and he's good old Uncle Paul and everything is fine. And, he can pull it, because it seems like he did pull that off quite well. There's not a lot of people going, this guy was a monster. Other than, internally, the brothers have, had some issues. It appears that Paul was kind of the cluster. Paul was the one everybody kind of had to help along and hold his hand. He wasn't quite getting things done. So it really makes you go, my God, was he sitting there planning on killing the whole family? Or the only other thing that comes to my mind on this case is, because Paul seems to be the giant F-up of the family, was this too a big F-up where he thought, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do this. I'm going to kill my brother and his wife. And the kids will be collateral damage, but I'm not going to kill them. They're going to die because the house is on fire. I don't know, something stupid where he's not thinking like it all the way through, like people have autonomy and can escape a burning building. I'm wondering if like he got rid of the parents and the kids are awake. Maybe he thought they'd sleep through it and just die of smoke inhalation. I don't know. I could see him thinking something like that, where he would never have to be having to intervene. And maybe, they woke up because there was some ruckus while you're murdering the other two people in the house and setting it on fire. Oh, I don't know. The children woke up. And then, oh shit, they're awake. They're aware of what I'm doing. They're going to tell on me. And the only possible outcome there is either I'm going to prison for killing my brother and his wife with these kids telling me, or I'm going to kill the kids now too. I'm wondering if it was like he kind of got pushed into that corner of, well, you're going to have to die now too because you saw what I was doing.
If he had any compassion and empathy towards anyone, even the children, it would have been a gunshot. But it was stabbings, multiple stabbings. And
he had a gun.
Yeah. And so that is unadulterated rage. Hatred.
And at the kids.
Yeah. And that shows me a complete lack of empathy. I mean, his in that moment, again, I don't know what brings on these things with some people, but the amount of psychopathy that was present in that moment and probably leading up to it, to be able to do those things is extremely high. To place that kind of importance on money. And also, we've hit it with every single case, his lack of emotional intelligence and his ability to play these behaviors forward longer than 24 hours, even maybe 16 hours to kind of play out what would happen to him, in the aftermath of all this, shows the level of stupidity. It's no wonder he was a complete loser, because he makes no healthy choices and decisions that make any sense whatsoever. Because like this entire thing makes no sense. Stupid people doing stupid shit to hurt others and kill them make no sense. And he is a great example of it. But again, his lack of, it had to have leaked out. I mean, there's like family enabling, and we've seen this with the Reiner case. We see this all over the place. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. It hasn't come out in court yet or anything like that. But the lack of unhealthy problem-solving capabilities that he had to leak out in a lot of places. And if no one else saw it but the family, then the family did a lot of enabling and a lot of covering for him. And I think that's what the tipping point might have been.
What I found interesting in this whole case is the familial reaction to this, to everything that went on. The surviving brother, Corey, his first reaction is get his kids and get the fuck out of Dodge.
Run away from crazy.
And he showed up, and he gave Paul some money that morning because he knew that his house was on fire. And he's thinking his family is being targeted, which is part of the narrative that Paul was trying to get people to believe. So I don't blame Corey for thinking his family's being targeted when your brother's telling you your family is being targeted. So-and-so's house is already on fire. Mine's on fire too, and yours isn't yet. Yeah, I'd be getting out of Dodge too. But at the same point, it's really an interesting dynamic that's even part of the equation. I mean, if something... I mean, I don't know. I don't have any siblings, so it's hard for me to wrap my mind around the dynamic. But if I had someone that was really close to me and their home was on fire, I don't know that the first thing I'm thinking is my family is being targeted. I mean, maybe when you see both houses are, maybe you're going there. But I guess you'd have to ask yourself, why? Why is your family? Does your family hold that many enemies? I don't know. I've never been in a family that has had enemies to that level, or any enemies really, that I think that would be out to do that to me. So that kind of tells me that there's a very real possibility that there's been some people that have been wronged at some point in time by some member of this family or members of this family, that seems to be a very real thought process that goes on, that Corey was considering that, oh yeah, we're being targeted. Why? Why would you even consider that to be a thing?
Again, when we look at these things behaviorally, so Corey, his ability to up and run on a drop of a dime, in other words, to us as outliers, it looks like, wow, he went from 0, everything's fine, to 100, I got to leave now. But it's never, ever that simple. So in order for him to go and get up and leave so rapidly, so quickly, without any kind of, again, from our optic, who knows what's going on. What says to me, he was groomed into thinking this and sensitized that this is a real possibility of something eventually happening. Whether it's because he felt the threat from outsiders that the crazy nut brother was saying, hey, we're being targeted as a family. Maybe he was premeditating how he's laying the groundwork for this, or he felt that from his brother himself. Either way, he was sensitized to saying, no, we got to leave now because these people, they what I've always predicted happened. Someone over the edge. And because for him to be able to run that fast without taking a pause, without taking a deep breath, in other words, for him, this was not an emergency takeoff. This was like a plan scheduled. Here's how we're going to get out of Dodge, plan B for life.
Well, and it makes you wonder, were there some folks who've been wronged? I mean, I don't know. I mean, the mob hits don't typically take out, people's families like that. I mean, that's just, I don't know. It doesn't usually happen like that. But we do know that Paul had been ciphering money out of the accounts, had been stealing, from the children's, his niece and nephew's college funds, all that, putting it into his own kids' college funds. These are just the things that we know about, the things that he got caught for. I'm going to guess there might have been other places he was getting money to make himself whole. I'm wondering what other interesting individuals he may have been interacting with that may then have, been possibly threatening, if at all. Or the very real possibility here, I'm wondering, he does seem kind of like a dope, but I do wonder if part of his dopiness, part of his what he thought was being genius was in the months leading up. Did he say anything to his family about them being targeted? Was he planting that seed somewhere that people are after us, so that he could carry something like this out and everybody would be ready to go should it happen, because they've been being warned for so long, and then it happens and everybody's already on this track over here on this path, and he thinks no one's going to look over here, even though it took him days.
So I love playing these things out, as we're doing a thought experiment with it. So let's assume that he was doing that for a second, and let's see what it would look like to the rest of the family if your brother, who is already not doing well, not really contributing. I mean, this has all been documented and came out that he wasn't really a high functioning person in his partnership. We're all kind of subsidizing a little bit. And so think about this. So you're the brothers, and now your one brother, and even the wives of the brothers are saying, so your one nutty brother is saying we're being targeted by someone, by the mom? I mean, seriously, because everyone will say, well, let's look at the source of who's saying this. I really don't think it's going to fly. I think he was so if he was doing that, it's setting even more greater seeds of doubt about him to the rest of the family.
If he was doing that, and again,
this is pure
big conjecture.
Going down our conjecture hypotheses as reasons behind some of the crazy behaviors he did.
Those are certainly questions that I want answers to, but I think two people who could probably answer a lot of them are dead. Yeah. So I think it's going to be up to whatever Corey has to say about what was going on in that relationship and what he may have been hearing from the brother, if at all, if he had been setting this up as a story, because I do wonder, was this as reactionary as some ways it appears to be, of you're getting cut off from our money and you better get your shit together, and then boom, he goes and does this, because that seems to be the triggering event. Or, had this been planned for a while and he was just waiting for the right moment to react? That could be true too. I don't know.
And I know when we're going down the road of premeditated, because that kind of elevates the charges against him. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious I'm not a legal guy, as you guys know. I'm curious what the length of time has to be for premeditated, because I'm like you on this one. The unsophisticated, I hate to use it that way, the unsophisticated way in which he went about these murders, and the whole setup seems very rage impulsivity kind of feel to it. So again, the planning, maybe a day or two in advance, maybe, because he had a moment of just overwhelming rage that he decided to act upon, and then put together this harebrained plan, which involved knives, guns, and not explosives, but fire and accelerants. That is just nuts.
It was sloppy, without a doubt. I mean, I feel like this wasn't thought out very well. It was an emergency takeoff, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So many questions. You can leave your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube or on our Substack, hiddenkillers.substack.com. Very interested to get your thoughts. This thing going all the way into March, if it stays on track. So, of course, we will keep talking about it here and following it for you if you're watching this. On Monday, the 26th, I will be on Vinnie Politan Investigates tonight on Court TV, discussing the same case and the events of the day. So you can also join me there to discuss as well. Let's move on to another case. Nick Reiner, another fine individual.
Fine fellow.
Here we go. Nick Reiner's arraignment has been pushed now to February 23rd after his high-profile defense attorney, Alan Jackson, abruptly withdrew from the case about a month ago, January 7th. Before stepping down, Jackson told reporters he'd investigated the matter top to bottom, and that, quote, pursuant to the law in California, Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder. Print that! Take that to the bank! Veins protruding from his head outside of the courthouse. He's now being represented by public defender Kimberly Green, and legal analysis are already pointing towards a likely not guilty by reason of insanity defense. Given Nick's documented history of schizoaffective disorder and his 2020 mental health conservatorship. But here's what's getting lost in the legal maneuvering. The behavioral warning signs were everywhere for decades, from childhood tantrums that a family yoga instructor said she'd never seen anything like, to violent outbursts in rehab at 15, to destroying his parents' guest house on meth. With what Nick himself described as no logic to the erratic behavior at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party just hours before the murders. Robin Dreek, retired FBI special agent, chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, is with us to help us examine this life arc, if you will, the formative experiences that shape how individuals respond to stress. Let's talk about Nick. When you look at the accounts of his childhood and going all the way back to the yoga instructor, describing screaming meltdowns lasting 20 minutes, the constant need for immediate attention, the way everyone in the family accommodated his chaos. What does that early baseline tell you about the behavioral trajectory that we're looking at here?
A life of control. Then he controlled the fact that he had no guardrails. He could do whatever he wanted, maneuver in any direction he wanted to, and he knew how to manipulate the world around him to get what he wanted. He remained the screaming child that screams for a bottle when he's, a couple months old. To get their way, because that's what we learn, to get fed, to get nourished at a young age. We make noise and we get fed and we get nourished. We know how to live in hell out of people, we get fed more. Until logic and healthy relationships start grooming us into being adults and functioning at a healthy level that, for whatever, myriad of reasons, mental health and whatever everyone else is saying, just he was never given guardrails that held. And it just kept exacerbating. It's why, every time he says, he feels there's conspiracy against him. No, he's actually, for the first time in life, he's experiencing guardrails. He's experiencing law and order. He's experiencing accountability for his actions that he's never. I mean, think about this. He went to the Christmas party wearing a hoodie and everyone else is dressed up. He was accommodated his entire life. And he's never had those guardrails, never had accountability. And even when he was sent into rehab, he came out and just did it again. I think it says something too of where Rob and Michele were at, about their 32-year-old son showing up to the black tie affair that he wasn't invited to, but they wanted to take him along to keep an eye on him, that he shows up in a hoodie. I mean, it to me, it says something too. It says Rob and Michele were too afraid to tell him to wear something fucking appropriate. Yeah.
That number one, that he couldn't come. That, no, I'm sorry, you're 32. We're going to this because of our accomplishments in life, and these are our circle of friends, not yours. Fuck off. But they couldn't do that, or say it in a nice way. They still couldn't even say to him, okay, you can come, but it's a fancy dress up occasion, little Nick. So we got to put on our nice clothes today. Because I'm sure he wasn't without nice clothes. Right. Or they couldn't immediately have some delivered to the house. The fact that they couldn't communicate that to him without some sort of fear of reprisal, and that would have been, let's just let him come in the hoodie. Fuck it. Let him come. That says a lot about the eggshells that they were walking on and the repercussions that they feared out of him that they did not know how to deal with.
He had them so trauma bonded.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I mean, trauma bonding is a very simple process to understand, is that you start out, having a great, healthy relationship. And you're thinking everything's fantastic. And then all of a sudden they get a little crazy on you. And then you want to withdraw, but then they give you a little bit of niceness to keep you drawn back in. It's like, oh, it's just a moment. But what happens is those moments of crazy, they start overwhelming the moments of kindness and the moments of hope. Mm-hmm. And those moments of hope become so minusculely small, and it happens over this period of time, like a lifetime living with someone, like in this case, where the crazy is this much. But you're living for the bond of waiting for a moment like this. And if we just, and he's got them so shamed and to think it's their fault because he's the victim. He's got them so conditioned to thinking he is the victim that he has groomed them into saying that I just have to behave better. I mean, I can imagine in their own minds, we didn't do enough. We didn't do enough. We don't do enough. And he keeps telling them, well, you need to do more. You need to do more. You need to do more. And that's how he's controlling and has them bonded to his behaviors. He's telling them exactly what he wants to do. And he's doing it and getting away with it.
I want to talk on this one here. This is a comment that we got here. Wealth was his downfall. If he came from a poor family, he would have had consequences much sooner. I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, it's an easy one to jump on and go, yeah, see, if you really are intellectually honest about it, I don't know. I really don't. I feel like he could be, I just think he would have died sooner. Honestly, I think that would have been the outcome. He would have died sooner because he would have died on the street. No one would have picked him back up. He wouldn't have had all the chances to survive. That's, I think, what really would have happened. These sort of things happen. There's millions of homes where this is happening right now, and someone is being held as hostage by their child in very similar type circumstances, being mentally held hostage by their children in very similar type circumstances, and money has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and I was on this too. Every show we try to cover, what could have been done differently for us and our own families if we facing something similar. And I know the Reiners paid a lot of money for his outpatient treatments. I mean, what was it, $70,000 or $80,000 a month they were paying for one thing he was doing? Yeah. But, and I researched, again, the brief research I can do in California, the things that are available, they could have actually, from what I understand, I don't know their circumstances, they are actually involuntarily inpatient treatments you can put someone into for less money than that.
There's nothing involuntary that you can put them into unless they're in a 72-hour hold. I mean,
right, the 72-hour one, right?
Yeah, but the pay. I mean, unless you're under a conservatorship or a judge has, and again, then you go to the gravely disabled qualification in California, which is ridiculous. Crazy, which basically means you are drooling and dying behind a dumpster, and you don't have your own shelter. No one's feeding you. If someone is to go to you and go, you know what? Here's my leftover Chick-fil-A. They're no longer gravely disabled then because you fed them, because someone else is providing that for them. So even they might be gravely disabled. The state of California no longer views it as that. So if you get them into the conservatorship, which they did, they got him into the conservatorship for a year. 1 year. Because the conservatorship was acting as it should, that then made him no longer gravely disabled, which also then disqualified the conservatorship from continuing forward because he was being cared for. It's just basically, it's not in any way to long-term care for anyone. It's just designed to get you out from behind the dumpster. And then so the states can say, you're not my responsibility anymore. We don't have to spend our funds or any of our resources on you. You're their problem now. It's basically what it does. And when it becomes too much and they kick you out and you're dying behind the dumpster again, if someone notices you, then I guess you're over here and we're going to have to take care of you. Or maybe.
It goes to what we were saying before is that, our mental health system sucks.
It's a joke.
Because there's nothing for this. There's just nothing when someone is so broken that the fear of violence is there and the family has been, bullied and victim blamed and groomed into allowing the crazy to take hold. There's nothing for them.
No, and your option is, he can go out to the streets and die, and your odds are pretty high that that's going to happen there. Or you can try and keep them alive as a parent would. And they took the latter, and I think most parents probably would.
And that's what Rita's saying here. And Rita says it right here in the comments, 72-hour hold and then involuntarily inpatient hold. And so that involuntary patient hold, that's what it gets really sketchy trying to figure out what actually would have been available and is currently available beyond that 72 hours.
Yeah. And then the patients that know how to work the system. I mean, unless they're like actively in a psychosis state or some sort of state like that where they're not going to beat the system. But if they've just been manipulative enough and they've done enough horrible shit to other people that get them into that hold because the rest of us look at this and go, this is psychotic, unsafe behavior, you're going away. If they're able to, within that 72 hours, somehow demonstrate competency, those places are itching to kick you out. Right. They want you gone in 24 hours if they can. I've had experience with putting 2 people into 72-hour holds before. And the first thing you hear when you get those people put into those 72-hour holds is, well, after 20, they might be able to get out. Like they say it like it's some sort of like wonderful thing. Like, well, we might be able to get them out in 24 hours if they're, if they're showing that they're like, no, like I don't want them out in 20. Right. Like, hold them longer if you can. Like, because I'm guessing in 72 hours, they're going to be the same fucking monster they were going in. They're just going to be able to mask it a little bit better.
We need to be able to ship you off to an island where you can't interact with anyone anymore.
Exactly. It's like, okay, island time. I mean, seriously, why don't we do that? Why don't we have an island for these folks? Okay, bye-bye.
It was called Australia years ago, when it was called New Holland years and years ago.
That's true. We did do that. Hey, it worked out well. It's a lovely place. A lot of people want. Why don't we start a new one? Let's start. Then we can look at it as a gift for the future that will put all of these people on an island, and then 100 years from now, it'll be this bustling metropolis, and people will want to live there. You're welcome. We gave you the crazy, and look, they turn into this lovely place to live.
Mars might be that way one day, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's just so much of with this case and where it could possibly go. Your thoughts in the comments section. We would love to see it. Leave it on YouTube. Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi is where you will find us there, or on our Substack, hiddenkillers.substack.com. The link is in the description. You can get all of our videos a day before they go to YouTube or anyplace else on Substack, and join in those conversations direct with us in the studio, all ad-free. There's no paywall right now on our Substack, so please sure to join us there. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today. Robin Drake, retired FBI special agent, your latest book. You got it right there. Ta-da! It's not all about me. If only the people we talked about today had read that book. Could you imagine?
Remember, tell 1 million of your friends, and I'll be very happy.
Exactly. Available right now for pre-order wherever you get books. Some of his other books are available right now as well. I'm trying not to let these fall over here very quickly. Unbreakable Alliances is the other one that's out right now, and there's others as well. So go check them out, Robin Drake. All right, until next time, for Robin and for Todd, I'm Tony Bruschi. We will talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.